Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My sister stole my cat, so now I'm taking her to court. After that, am I the jerk for leaving a vacation after my girlfriend brought her friends along? And after that, my son can't attend your child-free wedding? Okay then, you tell him. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to steal anyone's cat. But she looks so perfect. Sorry, I know that was lame. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My sister stole my cat, so now I'm taking her to court. I, 24 female, asked my sister Susan to house sit my house for 2 days and basically make sure my cat was fed. Long story short, Susan claimed my cat ran out the door under her feet and had gotten hit. I grieved and was so depressed for a good week after. I've had my cat for 4 years. The weird thing was, though, that my cat was usually scared of the outside. Fast forward, I ask my sister if I can come by. She makes up some excuse. She did this for 3 days. Finally, I show up unannounced, and my niece lets me in, then excitedly asks me, "Want to see our new kitty?" I say sure, and she shows me an exact identical cat of mine. Definitely my cat. I call my cat by its name, and she comes running to me. The only difference between the cats were that someone did a horrible job shaving this one's face. It's long-haired. My sister came in yelling that I couldn't just walk into her house, even though I've done it a million times before. I told her I wanted my cat back, and she denied it being mine. I went home and did a lot of research and was looking into lawyers and evidence that I needed. I then texted my sister today. I lied and said that I had a lawyer and I would be taking her to court for stealing my cat. She sent me an angry text back about how if I took her to court, I'd be a horrible sister, and she has kids to think of and I don't, and that my lovable cat made her want to get one, blah blah blah, the kids love their new cat. I told her I don't care. She told me I was acting crazy over a cat and how she'll never forgive me. I'm not delusional. The cat was identical to mine, came directly to its name. I love the cat like it's my kid. My sister has done messed up things to me in the past, but I never thought she would do something like this. Am I the jerk? Did you have your cat chipped? That would be all the proof you need. Anyone who owns a cat or a dog and does not have them chipped is making a big mistake. Not the jerk. Go back to your sister's house and retrieve your cat. What's she going to do? Call the police? They have better things to worry about these days. You may want to pay a lawyer a small sum to write a letter to your sister with enough legal verbiage to scare. I doubt this issue would ever end up in a courtroom. Am I the jerk for leaving a vacation after my girlfriend brought her friends along? My girlfriend, Sarah, who's 29, and I, male 28, have been dating for 5 years, and I wanted to go on a vacation with her to celebrate. I planned the trip for several months. Of course, I shared my plans with her and decided on skiing and snowboarding and other winter activities in Colorado. The activities seemed perfect, and I was looking forward to this for months because I wanted to propose to her at the end of the trip. 5 days before the trip, Sarah dropped the ball on me that she invited 2 of her friends to meet her there. I was upset because I wanted to spend one-on-one time with Sarah for our anniversary. I feel like it was plain and clear that this was a trip just for us. Even though I expressed my concerns, Sarah insisted that her friends already made plans to come and won't back out. I decided to accept this because there was no way for me to force her friends to not come. I wish I fought more on this. I figured we could make some changes to our plans and I would still be able to propose to her privately. Sarah essentially blew me off for her friends and we didn't get any private time. After 3 days of being in second place, I decided to leave the trip and head home. I told Sarah why I was leaving and she was upset. She told her friends about my decision and I was ganged up on. They said we were all having a great time. She thinks I'm being a jerk for making her pick between her friends and me, even though her friends weren't invited in the first place. I never had personal issues with her friends prior to this trip. I never made Sarah pick between me or her friends because everyone needs friends outside of a relationship. I'm at home now and thinking about everything. I have a day to myself before Sarah comes home, so at least I get to relax a bit. Sarah and her friends think I'm overreacting and think that I ruined the trip. I think Sarah was disrespectful and rude to me by ruining the purpose of the trip and having her friends gang up on me. Am I the jerk for leaving a vacation I planned for my girlfriend after her friends came along? Edit. This was a planned anniversary romantic trip. I was clear that we have plans just for us two. We've been on other anniversary trips together without her friends there. We did discuss marriage beforehand, so it's not like a proposal would have been out of the blue. Minor update. My friends are here at the house, and they've been running potential interference, just in case her friends try to bombard and harass me. They've been great, and I'm so glad to have them. Minor update too. None of Sarah's friends came by the house or harassed me yesterday or last night, which is good. Sarah hasn't come home yet. I figured out what I want to say, and I have it written out. Not the jerk. You sure you still want to propose? This. Even if it wasn't a proposal trip, it was so disrespectful of Sarah to basically pull the rug out from under him and get her friends to gang up on him. To do that to someone you've dated for 5 years? Jeez. I would sit her down and go through the plans you had, including the proposal. Watch the Pikachu face and then tell her you need time apart to evaluate this relationship. So let me get this straight. 1. You spent months planning on a vacation for the two of you. 2. You paid for this vacation. 3. She invited her friends and didn't tell you until it was too late for them to cancel. And 4. You made requests for alone time and she rebuffed those efforts to hang out as a group with her friends. Buddy, she found the ring and knew your plan for the weekend. Not the jerk. Might want to consider planning for a different future. Not the jerk. If y'all are still speaking, when she comes back from the trip, tell her you didn't ruin her good time and you didn't embarrass her in front of her friends. Seems if she's as serious about this relationship as you are, she should be able to understand your position. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. I think this is what the Reddit folks like to call marinara flags. My son can't attend your child-free wedding? Okay then, you tell him. I'm 31, male. My son is 5 years old. About a year ago, my brother, who's 34, reassured my son that he could be the ring bearer at his wedding. This conversation occurred after he heard us talking about mine and his dad's wedding and was very offended that he wasn't invited, despite the fact that he wouldn't be conceived for another 3 years after the event. My son really latched onto this comment. Now, all these months later, my brother has proposed and is planning a wedding with his fiancée. When I told my son that his uncle was getting married, he was obviously overjoyed and immediately launched into bragging to his younger brother, who wasn't born when the initial conversation took place and was just giving him typical baby babbles in return, that he got to be the ring bearer. I heard the proposal news from my mom, and when I called to congratulate my brother, I also told him the story of how excited our oldest is. My brother went on to tell me that his fiancée is pretty adamant about a child-free wedding, so the promise he made might not be doable anymore. This was obviously hard for me to hear. Not only would this break my son's heart, this would also make mine and my husband's lives considerably harder. We're currently living abroad and didn't think we would have to find childcare for the time of the wedding. Our only options now would be fly with our kids and leave them in the care of people we don't fully trust, since all trusted family members will be attending the ceremony. 2. Leave both of the kids with a trusted friend near our home and fly to the wedding. Not ideal, since thanks to flexible work schedules, we were planning to spend a month with our families following the wedding. Flying in for the celebration, flying home to pick up our kids, and then flying back is too exhausting. Them flying alone is obviously not an option. Or 3, not attend. My brother said he would try to get his fiancée to reconsider, but we spoke 2 nights ago, and he said she's putting her foot down. Admittedly, I was hurt over this on my son's behalf. I told him we would still try to make it, but it was unlikely that we could. I also told him that if he even wanted us to consider coming, he would have to tell his nephew himself that he was going back on his promise and why. My brother said it felt like I was issuing him an ultimatum and making him choose between family and his wife on what's supposed to be the happiest day of his life, and that I was being unfair. I said he shouldn't have made promises that he couldn't keep. Am I the jerk? ETA. Saw some confusion in the comments. I'm a man. Not the jerk. I think you summed it up beautifully. Your brother made a promise that got your kid all hyped up, and now he wants someone else to deal with the emotional fallout when he reneges, because it would be inconvenient for him to deal with it himself. That's a jerk move right there. Yeah, I honestly thought this was going to be OP being the jerk because it's up to parents to explain stuff like this. Unless you've made a promise to the kid that they're really excited about. I imagine the brother completely forgot about the promise, but now that he's been reminded, he kinda has to explain and apologize. Kids latch on to things, and it can be annoying, but in this case, he needs to explain so that the kid doesn't latch on to hating his uncle. Not the jerk. Your brother put you into a difficult position. Kids 101. Don't promise them stuff because they can forget it, but they can also remember it forever, and it's 50-50. If I were you, I'd skip their wedding. You and your husband can have a vows renewal ceremony instead, with 2 ring bearers. Do something cute. Invite friends and family that are close. Excuse yourself from brother's wedding, explaining the situation to your family. Break it on purpose? Sure, we'll replace it. I was recently reminded of this story, even though it took place approximately 10 years ago. Background. I worked at a GameStop when GameStop was still pretty hot. At that point in time, we were forced to ask people if they wanted to buy a small insurance on every disc we sold. It covered all damage. If people came back with a disc with insurance, we replaced it. No questions asked. Scene. It's like 20 minutes till close on a weeknight. I'm doing as much close prep as I can get away with when Jerk and his friends enter the store. Obviously bored and just wasting time, but since I'm alone in the store, I greet them and let them look around for a bit. Jerk brings up a game to the desk and I ring him up. Would you like to buy insurance on this game? We cover all damages. In a split second, he lights up like he just had the most genius idea in the world. All damage? Even if I break it myself? Like on purpose? Yeah, I can see clear as day where this is going, and so can his friends who start chuckling. I play along. Me. Yup, all damage, no matter what. No questions asked. He buys the insurance. I bag it and hand it to him, and they walk literally just out of the store before stopping. D pulls out the game, takes out the disc, and looks me straight in the eye while he snaps it in half. His friends are dying from laughing. I just smile politely. So he walks back in, hands me the game and goes, "This is broken. I'd like a new one." Cue malicious compliance. See, our system would warn us in the corner of the screen if we sold the last copy of something. That disc was the last one we had in the store. Me. Of course. Unfortunately, I do not have any more copies in store, so I have to have it shipped from one of our other locations. They close in 5 minutes though, as we did. But I will leave a note for the manager to put in a transfer order. It should be here in 3 to 5 work days. If you write your number here, we can call you when it arrives. His friends are wheezing from laughing at this point because it becomes obvious that Jerk totally played himself and now has to wait a week for his game. Lesson: be nice to retail workers. Warning and advice from a lifer. I have over 20 years of experience working in every kind of restaurant and have some advice and warnings for those thinking of a career or trying to move up in the industry. I started at Ruby Tuesdays at 19. The money was great, but I loved the lifestyle. We partied every night and worked every day. I did this for about 4 years until I was fired. Why was I fired? New management came in and cleaned house. All 10 of us were let go for BS reasons. This was a wake-up call. I realized servers could be fired at any time for any reason. I was devastated. Luckily, I found another job relatively quickly, Longhorn Steakhouse. This job was less fun, but the money was about 15 to 20% better. I decided to learn what it takes to work in fine dining to make as much money as possible. I talked with management about moving to a high-end restaurant in the same company, the Capitol Grill. They promised me if my sales were up and I was studying food and wine, they would transfer me. For the next year and a half, I studied and became the lead server. A friend of mine who was in upper management of Longhorn had informed me that they don't transfer servers, and I never had a shot, even though my store managers promised me they would. Again, I was devastated. One Friday night, one of the managers pulled me into the office to yell at me about a secret shopper. I did everything right, but did not upsell cheese fries. She was going off. I was in shock. I knew my sales were much higher than everyone's, and at this point, I had 4 tables that needed my attention. I had had enough. Longhorn was never going to promote me, and by this point, I knew how easy it was to get another job. She asked me how I was going to rectify the issue, as if I had committed some unforgivable sin. I told her I wasn't, and I immediately quit. Now she was in shock. She knew I was her strongest server and tried to backtrack. I had never quit a job before, and it felt good. I went to the door, asked my tables to cash out, and let them know what had just happened. All my tables did, and way overtipped me. At this point, the manager was fuming and said I would never work in the industry again. At this point, I decided it was time to apply to some fine dining restaurants. My first choice was the best restaurant in the area, Sky. They were trendy and had actual chefs and a crazy wine list. I got an interview, and the GM first asked me if I had experience in fine dining. I told him no, but I had been studying food and wine for the last year and a half, and I promised I would work hard and do what it took to prove myself. So he took a chance with me. Within a year, I was the head server. My PPA, per person average, was higher than anyone. Management loved me, and so did the owner. I took this job very seriously. I had regulars that were worth millions, if not billions of dollars. I had worked at Sky for several years, making more money than I ever had. Then our GM leaves, and 2 managers get transferred to sister restaurants. We get a new GM, and he brings in his friends to manage and starts to clean house. Several servers were let go for no reason. I fear I might be fired too. The new servers he brought in were horrible. They were sloppy and lazy, and their PPA was the lowest. Yet, they were given bigger sections and better shifts. This upset everyone, myself included. One night after my shift, I tried and calmly talked with the new GM about how this affected our money and asked if there was a fair way to schedule. He exploded on me. I was shocked. I profusely apologized. I meant no disrespect, but he had heard enough and fired me on the spot. Again, I was devastated. 2 days passed, and the restaurant owner called me up, apologizing and wanting me to return. I told him what had happened, how the GM spoke to me, and how he was cutting our shifts to make room for his friends. I asked the owner to look at the numbers and asked him who he would rather have representing his company. The owner agreed he would rather have me than the questionable new hires. I explained this situation had left a bad taste in my mouth and I wasn't sure I wanted to return. He offered me $15 an hour plus the tips I would make if I returned instead of the standard $5 server wage. I decided to accept and returned to work a few days later. For the first time in my serving career, I experienced a power shift. As soon as I walk in, I'm summoned to the office. The GM is sitting behind his desk and he looks upset. He said the way I spoke to him and went behind his back was unforgivable. I again calmly explained what happened and reminded him that he fired me. He said I should have dealt with the consequences like a man. He said some things would be changing. My shift would be cut and I would be put on a trial run to see if I could come back. I cut him off and said, "No, I won't. I will work my regular schedule with a fair section. If he doesn't like it, he can talk to his boss, the owner." I thought the guy was going to start swinging. I have never seen someone so angry. He screams at me to get out of his office. I start taking tables and working my shift, and the GM comes on the floor while I'm at the table and pulls me by my arm to go to his office. This shocks the guests and me. The owner is in the GM's chair, and I sit next to the GM. The GM immediately starts laying into me, saying I'm a colossal problem. I calmly explained I had guests I was taking care of at the moment and asked if it would be possible to continue this conversation once my section was empty. The GM says no. The owner disagreed and said yes, we would talk after my shift. As I'm working my shift, I see every manager and chef go into the office to talk with the owner. They talked for a while. Once my section was empty, I knocked on the door and said I was ready to talk whenever they were. I change out of my uniform and I'm summoned to come back to the office. I'm sure I'll be let go for some random reason. As soon as I sit, the GM looks nervous, but is still furious with me. The owner says we must squash this little beef and return to business. I agree, but the GM interjects and says I'm a huge problem. The owner says he's talked with everyone and no one has a problem with me. He says my sales are the highest and he has no guest complaints. The GM then went on about how I questioned his authority. I calmly explained if I couldn't make money here, I couldn't work here. We had already lost 3 strong servers the last month due to them quitting, and he fired a few other people. The owner had heard enough. He told the GM to give me whatever shifts I wanted and change his attitude. I was told I could leave and to close the door. As I left, I could hear the owner screaming at the GM that he should fire him. I went home, but another server told me they were in the office for an hour and the owner was going off. The next couple of months were rocky. The GM wouldn't even look at me. One day I heard the GM and the new servers were fired. They were all stealing. About a year later, I left on good terms due to moving. I got another fine dining job and studied under a master wine steward and James Beard award-winning chefs. Unfortunately, that restaurant closed, and now I'm at another fine dining job. It's a good company and the money is excellent. I get whatever hours I want and I'm respected. I hope my story saves you some time and aggravation. I'll list some bullet points below so that I can help you. 1. If you know you will serve for a few years, apply to fine dining restaurants. Even if you don't think you're qualified, the difference in money is enormous. 2. Don't use things you shouldn't be using. I've witnessed many servers go down that path, which always ends badly. 3. Management will almost always try and take advantage of you. They will throw you under the bus in a second if it makes them look good. 4. There is no job security in this business. Even if management loves you, managers come and go, and you might have a nightmare boss next week. 5. Always have a backup plan. I only work 2 or 3 days a week and do my own business on the side. Remember, no job security. If the restaurant is going under, they won't tell you. They will lock the doors. 6. Doing this job full-time will fundamentally damage you. Fake smiling and pretending will lead you to feel horrible after a while. You have thoughts, dreams, and feelings, and you are entitled to them. Extra onions. This happened years ago. I was working at a McDonald's on a highway rest stop as a teenager over the summer. I was making the burgers in the back when a belligerent customer came up and ordered a cheeseburger with extra onions. He made sure to emphasize, "I want extra onions," loudly and repeatedly, and banged his fist on the counter because last time he ordered extra onions, there weren't enough onions on it. My manager overheard the order as well because the customer was being loud and rude to the cashier. I looked over at my manager and he gave me the nod. He knew what I had in mind and that he would have my back. Cue malicious compliance. Standard cheeseburgers are supposed to have a little sprinkle of this diced onion mix. I proceeded to pile on about a cup of diced onions on top of the burger. To keep it from spilling off the burger, I alternated a slice of cheese between 1/2 inch thick onion layers. So a total 1.5 inch thick layer of diced onion and cheese ended up on this burger along with the other toppings. I microwaved it so the melted cheese fused with the onions to keep it all together as best as possible. Wrapped it up carefully and put it out for the cashier to pick up. It was as tall as a Big Mac and weighed 3 times as much as a normal cheeseburger. The cashier picked it up and her eyes grew wide as she hesitantly bagged it, glanced at the manager as he waved her on, and walked back to the register. The customer snapped the bag out of her hand and says, "This better have extra onions on it or I'll be back." We watched the guy grab his condiments and napkins and he heads to the seating area, so the manager stayed at the counter waiting for any blowback. It wasn't busy, so we sent a staff member to go check on the napkin section that was near the guy to see his reaction as he opened up his onion burger. Sure enough, he unwraps the burger, looks at it inquisitively as onions and cheese spill out the sides, does a little nod and smirk like this was exactly what he was looking for, and takes a huge bite out of it. Chews a couple times. His eyes then go wide and he realizes his mistake and immediately spits it out onto the tray. He sits there sheepishly for a few moments with an embarrassed look on his face while he inspects the burger more closely, and you can see him ponder the next move while he drinks his soda and munches on fries. He tries scraping off some of the onions onto the wrapper, but the cheese and other toppings are coming with it, basically left with a plain burger and bun. He tries unsuccessfully to reassemble the burger with less onion and some of the other toppings, but it was a big pile of onion, ketchup, mustard, cheese with a single pickle. He takes another bite, then throws it down on the tray in disgust. He finishes his fries, tosses the burger in the trash, and we watch him leave in embarrassment. He doesn't even glance back to the counter on his way out. Am I the jerk for throwing away cookies given to us by my mother-in-law? It was technically 1 cookie. Here's what happened. My husband's mother baked cookies and gave us 5 more to take home. My son ate 2 of the 5, leaving 3 cookies left. My husband ate a lot at my mother-in-law's house before we left the same day. Now I've been trying to lose baby weight from our most recent baby, and as such we have a rule. No sweets in the house. I have a binging problem, and thus if we do want sweets, we usually either make it from scratch or go out to get them when we want them and store them in designated areas in the house. He's free to store his snacks in his office and gaming area, which isn't even on the same floor. We have multiple spots for them that aren't hard to reach. It's just not sitting out in my face all day. I also told him earlier that I was trying not to eat many cookies that day because my progress was slowing down due to us going out to eat a lot. I went out to shop for groceries because I wanted to meal plan, and my husband left the dishes for me to do when I got back. It was over an hour of grocery shopping, and I was tired and hungry when I got back. I started doing the dishes first and opened the cabinet that only stores our cups, and there's 2 darn cookies right there in front of me. I was mad because I had went the entire day eating only 1 cookie, but the reasoning for not having sweets out in the open was clear in that moment because I ate 1 quickly and I was about to start on the other. But I decided to just throw it away because it was the only place of finality. That meant I could not get it later and devour it. My husband came up and I explained that he put the cookie in a terrible spot and I saw it and almost ate them both. He said good thing I didn't because he wanted the last one, and that's when I said I threw it out. He thinks I'm a jerk for tossing it. I think he was a jerk for putting it in the dumbest location possible, knowing I was going to do the dishes and see it. He literally just had to walk less than 5 steps over to the snack shelf and put it there. I'm on a weight loss journey. We don't leave snacks out in the open because of it, but designated areas. My husband left cookies his mom baked in a cabinet meant only for cups, although knowing I was going to do the dishes, and so I tossed one of them after eating one to prevent myself from eating the other. So, am I the jerk for throwing it away? Edit. Alright, time to move on from reading comments. To those who voted me the jerk, I get it, it's food waste. To the ones calling me a jerk for making my family suffer, fully read my post. Our house has lots of sweets and snacks. In fact, I realized we still have chocolate chip cookies frozen in our freezer. No one is suffering in an inability to indulge themselves when they want to. To those who said not the jerk, thanks. I think everyone deals with food in their own ways. Mine was cemented into my head to be unhealthy at a young age, so here I am, unable to control myself at times. Thanks. You're the jerk. What? Why didn't you move it to the snack shelf for your husband? Seriously, good luck with the weight loss if you have this little self-control. You have to be petty and throw out a home-baked cookie. Jerk move 100%. Food addiction is a hard thing to beat. I've done what OP has done. I've also gone back to the trash to get the thing I wanted so bad that I had thrown it out in the first place, like hours later. Not proud of it. And it wasn't a sealed takeout container, but still nasty, I know. OP set up boundaries with her husband, who presumably does not have food impulse control issues, and he put the cookie in the worst possible place. She's not the jerk for being sick. She just needs more time to work at her issues and a little support from her family. Not the jerk. I think the comments are pretty mean. If OP had a diagnosed eating disorder, would that make it okay for her to have no self-control? She does have self-control because she didn't eat the cookie and tried to create a system that would work for her needs. It was one cookie after everyone had already had plenty, and not that big of a deal to be honest. Not the jerk. If husband knows OP has a problem with binging, which is disordered eating behavior, then it's also not hard for him to just move the cookie to his office or gaming area or snack shelf if he wanted the last cookie so badly. As a person who also struggles with binging, I'd rather chuck one cookie in the bin to maintain self-control than eat it and trigger a binge. Binging is horrible, and once a cycle begins, it's really hard to get out of. It's literally one cookie. If you wanted a cookie so bad you'd hit the point of anger, knowing someone threw it away to prevent a binge, that makes you a bit weird in my opinion. The You're the Jerks have not experienced binge eating disorder. Throwing away a cookie was a victory, regardless of its origin, rather than triggering a serious binge with larger consequences. A cookie, even one made by dear old mom, is not more important than OP's mental and physical well-being. If it was easy to have willpower and just move on, binge eating disorders wouldn't be a thing. Not the jerk, OP, and well done. I don't care if I'm being downvoted into oblivion. I'm a dude, put on roughly 30 pounds since having kids. If someone puts a treat in front of me, I just eat it. I know it's a shortcoming or something I should do better at. I've had long periods of time where I just don't have any sweets around me, and it's helped me control my weight. But with kids, you end up with all kinds of snacks and treats and crap that I'd otherwise never have around. For someone to not be helpful enough to say, "Oh, good for you for throwing that out instead of eating it." Because let's be clear, your husband was never going to eat that cookie. That was decided when he left it for you in plain sight. Your choice was to eat it or throw it out. Good for you. Keep coming back. It's a really hard thing to combat, and you need people who help. 100% not the jerk. Edit. Wow, these comments are atrocious. Throwing out a cookie doesn't make someone a jerk. OP, hang in there. You're the jerk. Your poor impulse control isn't everyone else's responsibility. It's great that they're supporting and accommodating, but you need to hold yourself accountable. You didn't eat the cookie you didn't want, and then throw out the other one because of where your husband left them. It wasn't because your willpower was depleted from running an errand and doing a chore. You did it because you have a binge eating problem. You literally had to just not touch the cookies. You need therapy to work on your self-control. Your family shouldn't have to curb themselves because you lack it. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. I have weight issues, so we have a rule about sweets. Sounds like a you problem that's being forced on everyone else. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. Bruh, it's one single cookie. Why are these people so mad she threw out one single cookie? People on Reddit really get worked up over the smallest things. Mother-in-law buys us a 2-day weekday hotel stay in her city as a Christmas gift. Husband, who's 37, and I, 30, female, live a 9-hour drive away from mother-in-law. No kids. For Christmas, without checking in with us first, she bought us a hotel from Tuesday to Thursday during a random week in the summer. She told us it was a trip for us lovebirds to do whatever we want. Sure, Jan. I started a new job last summer and don't have paid vacation for a year. Government. I also have to have someone watch our 2 dogs while we're away. We're also responsible for paying for our flights as well. So it's a big hit financially for a vacation we didn't want in the first place. Anyway, husband and I were doing some planning for what we're wanting to do. I have family in the area and husband has other family there as well. Mother-in-law finds out and tells us we need to spend the whole trip with her. We were planning on spending all Wednesday with her, but then she goes into a guilt trip about how we never see her. For the record, we saw her last summer and at Christmas. Anyway, she wants to spend Wednesday and Thursday with us and is now saying the trip was for her to spend time with us. Duh. But we fly in Tuesday night and fly out Friday morning, only flights available, which means I won't be able to see my family unless I extend our trip and expenses. I got 10 text messages at midnight, 11 p.m. her time, last night about why we need to focus on her for the trip. She has surgery. Not while we're there, but later in the summer for a shoulder injury. She doesn't get time off besides this. She can't travel, etc. Her tone was rude and she's never talked to me like that before. Today, she told my husband she wants to sell her house so she can contribute to a down payment on a home we're saving for. We told her we don't want to talk about that until the summer. How do we put an end to the generosity that is actually leveraged to control our behavior? Is there a way to gently shut her down? She doesn't listen and isn't interested in our opinions or perspective and doesn't respect boundaries. Please help me. Nope, nope, and nope. Selling her house to help with your down payment equals moving in because she has nowhere to live and she helped pay for it. And don't accept that hotel. It's too much out of pocket to be forced to maintain someone else's itinerary. Next time she gives you a gift, tell her you hope it's refundable because it doesn't work for you. When she brings up the house, no thank you, we'll be buying our own home. Invite your family on the days you're in town. Just because she's forcing you to visit her doesn't mean you have to play her game fully. Hubby really needs to tell her this doesn't work for you and give her boundaries. Huge shout out to our newest official channel member, Linda. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means the world to Reddit Boy and I. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.